The initial incident occurred on a Monday night while I was sound asleep. My slumber was disrupted by the uproar of footsteps outside my house and the loud ringing of my phone resting on the bedside table. The phone was on the verge of falling off the table, but I caught it just in time. I pressed it against my ear without checking the caller ID. My head throbbed and my throat felt parched. "Hello? 911, we have an emergency," a trembling female voice informed me. "Sorry? 911, we have an emergency." I glanced at the number, and indeed it was 911. My headache intensified, and I furrowed my brow. "I don't understand. We have an emergency. Please, we need your help." "You need my help?" I asked incredulously. In my drowsy state, her words were nonsensical and her pleas seemed like gibberish. "I'm not a police officer." "We need your help." Her voice grew more desperate and insistent. "Please." Her tone changed abruptly, and I could hear her trembling sobs. It sent shivers down my spine, and I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes. "Hello?" She whispered frantically into the phone. "Please, he's coming. He's here, I can't—" A loud crack interrupted her, followed by a spine-chilling scream. I hadn't realized a human could produce such a sound. My stomach churned as I stared at the caller ID. My breathing quickened, and the call disconnected. Unsure of what to do, I considered calling the police, but then realized the absurdity of the situation. Who do you call when the police calls you for help? The second incident occurred while I was preparing dinner. I had dismissed the previous phone call as a prank by local troublemakers, though I couldn't explain how they had used the 911 hotline. As I chopped tomatoes and onions, a piercing ring resounded from upstairs. I sighed, abandoned the knife, and dashed up the stairs to retrieve my phone. My heart sank when I saw that the call was once again from 911. Neighborhood pranksters again? A second time? I wiped my hands on my apron and picked up the vibrating phone. I hesitantly placed it against my ear. A distraught male voice screamed, "No! Stop!" "Hello?" My voice came out as a raspy whisper. "Help me!" The man yelled into the phone, anguish evident in his tone. "They're eating me!" "What? Please help me!" His tormented cries rang in my ears, and I couldn't help but drop the phone from my shaking hands. The device hit the floor, and the man let out a high-pitched scream before the call ended. I didn't bother picking up the phone. I just went downstairs and continued cooking. I kept the bizarre calls a secret, partly because I had no one to confide in. My family would likely dismiss my concerns as childish, and my friends wouldn't believe me. Sometimes I lay in bed, pondering the fate of those who had called me. I wondered what would happen if I called 911 myself. I questioned when the next call would come. A week later, the next call arrived. The ringing interrupted my daydream as I sat at my desk attempting to study. The words on the page seemed to swim, and my eyelids grew heavy. Eventually, I dozed off. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. With trepidation, I reached for the device, dreading what I would see on the screen. As expected, it was another call from 911. Over the past week, I hadn't received any other calls. I hesitated, debating whether to answer or not. I was now convinced that it wasn't neighborhood kids. No one could fake such genuine, tormented cries and screams. Despite having a valid reason to ignore the call and return to sleep, my curiosity got the better of me. I slowly dragged my finger across the screen, pressing the green button. "Hello?" All I heard was a harrowing, blood-curdling scream from the other end. It was so deafening and jarring that I involuntarily flinched in my seat. "God save me!" a child cried on the line. She sounded around 8 or 9, and I felt a lump in my throat, my stomach twisting into knots. "God save me, please!" she pleaded, followed by the unmistakable sound of slicing. Something wet and sticky oozed across the floor. A dark part of me already knew that it was blood. For a moment, I listened in silence to the other end. The girl was gone. Heavy, raspy breathing filled my ear. Then the call abruptly ended. I removed the SIM card from my phone and hid the device deep within my wardrobe. I told myself that no matter what, I would not pick up next time. My mind was constantly occupied, and the stress began to take its toll a week later. I suffered from insomnia, a lack of focus, and a loss of appetite. But at least no one was calling. One day I decided I needed a refreshing morning run more than anything else. So, as the clock struck 5 a.m., I put on my workout clothes and filled up my water bottle. I stepped outside into the chilly air and took a deep breath. Determined to forget about the distressing calls and give myself a break, I started with a slow jog before gradually picking up speed. It felt good. The crisp air nipped at my skin, my feet connected with the ground, and my body moved freely. Eventually, I stopped to catch my breath and take a sip of water. As I drank, I noticed a very tall man standing at the corner of the street, near a cafe. He was significantly taller than the average man, maybe by 5 or 6 inches. He was lanky and seemed disoriented. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about him unnerved me. I decided to head in the opposite direction when I heard his deep, unsteady voice call out, "Hey, excuse me!" I quickened my pace, prepared to sprint if he came any closer. I scanned my surroundings. No one else was out at this hour. Feeling uneasy, I broke into a jog, putting distance between us. Several minutes into my escape, I made the mistake of looking back. The man was following me, closing in quickly. His arms hung awkwardly by his sides, and the ground seemed to tremble with each step he took. My heart raced as I started running, rounding a corner in an attempt to lose him. My water bottle slipped from my grasp and clattered to the ground. He began to run too, his footsteps thunderous. As he drew closer, I could see his face more clearly and recoiled in horror. He had features, but they were distorted, pale skin, gaunt eyes, and an unnaturally wide mouth. It was far worse than being pursued by a man twice my size. It was as though he had stepped out of a terrifying, macabre film. I decided against heading home and locking the doors, unsure of the man's strength or how much my locks could withstand. Moreover, it was unwise to reveal my address to him, so I veered away from my sanctuary. The nearest police station was a mile away, and I didn't have my phone to call for help. I tried several stores, casting anxious glances behind me to locate my pursuer, but found no refuge. All doors were locked, windows closed, and lights off. Every store, cafe, and house was inaccessible. No one answered their doors, and there were no people outside, which was unusual for this hour. Usually, dog walkers, commuters, and joggers would be out and about. My stomach churned, as if I were the unwitting participant in some twisted prank. After some time, my fear intensified. The man was relentless, and his pursuit showed no signs of waning. Every few minutes, he would bellow in his unsteady voice, "Hey, excuse me!" His shrill tone sent shivers down my spine. I paused momentarily to catch my breath. The chase felt like it had lasted for hours. Fearful thoughts of what he would do if he caught me reignited my adrenaline, and I resumed running. I cursed myself for leaving my phone at home, and, even worse, removing the SIM card. Soon, I spotted a KX telephone box beside the road, near an apparently vacant restaurant. Without daring to look over my shoulder, I ducked into the small space just as the man reached me. I locked the door, and he began pounding on the glass with ferocity, his face skeletal and monstrous. My heart hammered in my chest as I grabbed the telephone, dialed 911, and pressed the receiver to my ear, praying fervently. The man's forceful banging on the glass threatened to shatter it at any moment. I took a deep breath when someone answered on the second ring, but all I heard were screams and cries. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.